First, let me thank you for allowing Collins & Collins LLC to take part in East Coast Yachts growing and expansion of their company, the changeover and transformation. The purpose of the meeting was East Coast Yachts asked Collins & Collins to present, explain, evaluate, and recommend a course of action for the company upon the retirement of the current owner, Tom. One of the things we wanted to do was see what sole proprietorship, what LLC, and different corporation options would allow. So we're taking the time to present the meetings so we can give you a good explanation and a recommendation of what we think East Coast Yachts should probably do. A little bit of history about East Coast Yachts. We did a little digging. It was founded in 1969. Its niche market is a custom, mid-size, high-performance yachts. So they are in a kind of a niche market, and so we understand that. It's located in Southern California. The current owner is Tom Warren, who will be stepping down, and and Larissa will be taking over the day-to-day operations of the company. Current structure of the company is Tom Warren is the owner. He's the sole proprietor of the company at this point in time. East Coast Yachts is operating as a sole proprietorship. That has no outside decision-making parties within the company, so there's no one else involved. Tom makes all the decisions for the company. At this point in time, East Coast Yachts is experiencing a fairly strong growth in its company, and so you're looking to transition from a sole proprietorship or see what the options are for your company. First, the different models of businesses that we're going to talk about today is sole proprietorship. Does the company want to continue as a sole proprietorship? Do we want to move to a limited liability company? Do we want to convert to a corporation, either a C Corp or an S Corp? We'll give a little explanation of both of those things. So the sole proprietorship, the advantage of the sole proprietorship is that Tom or Alyssa, whoever is the proprietor of the company, has sole ownership and sole recognition of the company. Profits of the company are all claimed as income by the proprietor, so there's no difference in that. It's just income on your taxes. And it is the simplest and most inexpensive to accommodate as a company. There are no corporate taxes involved with sole proprietorship, so what you pay on your income is the only taxation that's ever considered for the company. Some of the drawbacks of the sole proprietorship. The sole proprietor assumes 100% liability for the company. All the financial losses, there's no distinction between the business property and the personal assets of the proprietor of the company. Sole proprietorship is non-transferable. Upon death, the company is dissolved and it's no longer a viable company. And you'll also be unable to bring in outside revenue or equity to the company if you need to raise money. Of these right here would be the largest drawbacks I would see as a proprietorship for this company. Making small yachts, assuming 100% liability for all your products. If somebody were to get killed or die in an accident involving one of the boats, a mismanufacturing problem or something like that, they could sue the company and not only take the company bankrupt, but personal financials would also be given up in that process, and they could sue you for those things. The other one to consider, the second one, would be the limited liability company. This is a little bit different. Some things are the same as our sole proprietorship. Taxation would still be the same as a single owner if only one proprietor or only one person was to take on the limited liability company. So it would still be taxed generally the same with the pass-through regulations of taxation. If it was multiple owners, if somebody else wanted to join the company, it would just be taxed based upon the percent of ownership of the company due to that income still. There's flexible tax reporting options, unlike other strategies. That has separation of personal and company assets, meaning that if something were to happen with the company, they would be sued or something like that, that the company going bankrupt would not necessarily mean personal bankruptcy. Your property would still be your property, and the company's could be forfeited. Can allow the company to take on partners if needed. So if you're short on cash, somebody can buy into the company as a partner. There's no rigid management criteria. There's no structured criteria. You would still remain in ownership and full decision making of the company. If for some odd reason East Coast Yachts would want to become involved with another company, or you purchased out by another company, a corporation could purchase this through. And then, of course, we talked about the pass-through taxation, and there's no federal income tax for a sole proprietorship. A couple of disadvantages here. As a tax, investors aren't really interested in doing limited liability companies because of the taxation process in the K-1. They have to wait for reports, and they really don't have a good structure or reporting strategy that they can see from the outside for the company. An LLC requires really stringent bookkeeping compared to the sole proprietorship because you have to completely separate the company's money from your personal money. A small drawback too is you cannot cash checks. I don't know why the company would really need to do that. So LLC cannot cash checks, they must be deposited. Some of the advantages to corporation. Ownership is easily transferred via shares. That means you can move the company back and forth or sell part of it to someone else if you want. It's not dissolved due to death. Only liability to the investors is what they've paid for their shares. So if somebody were to invest, that's the only thing they could lose. It's very attractive to investors. They like to get involved in these companies because of the reporting and things like that. They can see there's good transparency. Ability to raise cash with the sale of stocks is easy to do. It's also recognized outside of the United States, which may be a big one since you probably sell a lot of these yachts overseas into other countries. And there's also a separation of personal and company assets, just like the LLC. So if the company were to get sued, personal possessions would not be forfeited. A couple of the disadvantages: has a structured management and a board of directors that must be implemented. So you have to have a board of directors, and they're elected by shareholders, and thus and so. Federal income tax has to be paid on the entity, so it pays its taxes, and then you would pay your own taxes. So it's kind of a double taxation problem. Rigid business and tax reporting requirements. So you have to have a lot of reporting and a lot of transparency, and you have to put out specific SEC required reports for your taxation and profits. Owners essentially double taxed, as I talked about, because you pay the federal income tax for the company, and then you also pay your personal income taxes. Some of the differences between the S Corp and the C Corp. One, the S Corp is a subchapter corporation, and the C Corp is just a standard corporation. The S Corp has a maximum of 100 shareholders. The S Corp may not issue more than one type of stock, can't have ownership in outside citizens, and it can't be owned by other businesses. You do avoid the double taxation with the S Corp, though, because it is immune to federal income taxes. These are the way East Coast is really aligned right now. It's business proprietor for 50 years, little perceived interest in finding outside investors, personal protection, liability, importance, attention to detail. We notice this is a huge thing, which that could be lost if there's shareholders or board of directors looking for profits. Perception and brand could be questioned if outside decision makers are put in place. Desire seems to be to keep the company within the family as well from the descriptions. So our recommendations here at Collins, considering the family nature of the company and the single proprietor ownership that it's been for 50 years, the attention to detail and just the general way the company is done, it didn't seem like there was much of an interest in an outside business partners or taking on other partners. So we would recommend strongly that you consider a limited liability company. This will take liability away from the owners. So if whoever that may be, Tom or Larissa in the future, assuming it will be Larissa, she can start up this company and not assume any of the responsibilities for accidents, deaths, boat problems, or even, forbid that the company would go bankrupt for some reason. Her property would be protected from that situation. If the company would need capital, you can always take on other partners in the company. And taxation and reporting would continue on as normal. It would be just like you were still a sole proprietorship within the company. So this is our recommendation from Collins & Collins, would be to take on an LLC. Here are some of the sources where we attained some of the information about this subject matter. Thank you.